and welcome to the show. Thank you all for joining. It's really great to see everybody again. Today we have a very interesting show. We're going to be talking about women within the Jehovah's Witness organization, how they are viewed, and the shocking double standards that they face within the organization. I know that the organization loves to say how much they respect and value women, but is this really the case in practice? Well, we're going to have a look at that. And why don't we get the ball rolling? And we're going to have a little clip here from Jeffrey Jackson. He's a governing body member. It's something that he said at the Royal Australian Commission that happened. So let's get cracking.
The role of women in the Jehovah's Witness religion is a very dignified role. We don't make women, well, we certainly do not want women to feel like second-rate citizens. In God's view, men and women are equal, but...
Yes, but. There's always that but in there, isn't there? They're equal, but.
But.
So then let's hear about all these buts. Women within the organization represent about half the members. So what is their role then within the congregations? Well, I can tell you from first-hand experience that it's very minimal. They can go out preaching, but then again, so can those within the congregation who are child rapists, like this convicted Jehovah's Witness pedophile, Wayman Ivory.
You're Wayman Ivory?
Yeah, and who are you?
You're a convicted violent child rapist, and you're out here in the neighborhood?
No, wait, no.
1992 or so? A 9-year-old girl?
No, you got it all wrong. You got it all wrong.
Did you get convicted? Are you on the pedophile registry list?
No, not.
Violent offender?
No, you got it all wrong.
No, we got it all right. A convicted pedophile caught out in service lying. The same guy later admitted that, in fact, he had committed this crime and was a convicted pedophile. Sisters are allowed to pray out loud before a group, but only if no baptized male or baptized male child is present. And if there are brothers present who have been publicly or privately reproved, like a JW pedophile, then she can say the prayer, but only with her head covered. Yes, women must remain subservient even to the congregation pedophiles. So there could be a service group with some experienced pioneer sisters present, but if the only male present is an 8-year-old baptized boy, he will take the group and instruct them with what to do. Check out this Kingdom Ministry, which outlines some of the rules regarding sisters. It's called When a Leper Must Conduct. When a Sister Must Conduct. So this is from the March 2015 Kingdom Ministry, and talking about meetings for field service. It says a sister should wear a head covering, while she should avoid giving the appearance of instructing those in attendance. It says if a baptized brother joins the meeting after it has started, the sister would normally invite him to finish the meeting. And then later on it talks about how if there's an adult brother who is restricted from conducting the meeting or offering congregation prayer for reasons known by the elders, like, for example, he's a pedophile, it says that without revealing confidential information, the elder should let the assigned sister know that they should conduct and pray even when he is in attendance. She can give a talk from the platform, but cannot address the audience, because this is considered teaching, a forbidden practice by women from the platform. So they attempt to skirt around this by having women members speak to a female assistant, or householder as they're called. This little boy can instruct and teach the congregation, but the mature, experienced sister, who could even be his mother or adopted mother, who most likely even wrote his talk, cannot. There are many things to look after within the congregation. Money from contribution boxes need to be collected, accounts need to be reconciled, there's literature counters where they need to order literature and distribute it to others within the congregation. There's all kinds of jobs. Can women within the congregation be responsible for any of these? No. Not even the most menial task, in fact. These jobs are given to men within the congregation that are called ministerial servants. And if they do an adequate job with these positions, then they can go on to become elders. So what can sisters do within the organization? Well, as we discussed, they can clean. They can clean toilets. And if they're lucky, their husband will be a somebody, like a circuit overseer or somebody, so that they can ride his gravy train and have a bit more clout than some of the other sisters. The organization must know that their treatment of women is a bit odd. They believe that women are part of the 144,000 who will rule from heaven in the new world, yet while on earth, these same women can do little more than scrub a toilet. This old 1930 Golden Age magazine, or what's now called The Awake, is perhaps how the organization tries to reconcile the absurd ways in how women are treated. There's a question there. Will husband and wife live together after the resurrection is completed, if both are in harmony with God? And among other things that it says there, notice what it says where it's underlined. Whether the identity of the sexes as such will be preserved, we do not know. They should have just left it at that, but then they have to say this. There have been some well-authenticated instances in which women have been transformed into men. And it is possible that this transformation may become general, and we shall all be brothers together. And then we have this letter that went out to all elders in 2010. Yes, it's worse than you fear. It's talking there about the fact that several elders had asked about the possibility of having their elder book, the Shepherding the Flock of God book, spiral bound. And it says that they had no problem with this, as long as the elder does it himself, or if it's done by another elder. It says if he has another baptized brother who is not an elder do the work for him, the elder must watch while the work is being done. But then it goes on to say outside companies, unbelievers or sisters, are not permitted to do this work, that the material is confidential and confidentiality must be preserved. I would have been a lot more understanding if they just left it up to the elders to do this work and to bind their own books. But then they have to throw this fly into the ointment, about having brothers who are not elders do this work as long as it's supervised. And then unbelievers and sisters cannot. It's like they've just lumped us in with unbelievers. Why not lump us in with the tax collectors and the murderers? It's just so highly insulting. But you're going to understand why they're so hell-bent on keeping sisters away from their secret rule book when we discuss this next bit. You see, their secret rule book is downright bigoted when it discusses the rules for those spouses that are accused of wrongdoing. Only elder men have access to these rules, and the odd baptized non-elder brother, as we just discussed. And the rules are clearly stacked in their favor. Sisters have no idea what the hidden rules really are. It's as if the accused is a married sister. It is best to have her believing husband present for the hearing. He is her head, and the efforts to restore her and direct her can be very helpful. If the accused is a married brother, his wife would normally not attend the hearing. However, if the husband wants his wife to be present, not very likely, she may attend a portion of the hearing. So he's helpful to restore her, but I guess she's not helpful at all to restore him. And he should go to her hearing, but she shouldn't really go to his. And if she does, only because he wants her there, and only for a portion of it. Why this double standard? It further goes on to say there, it says if the husband committed adultery, it says they should inform the innocent mate that her resuming sexual relations with the guilty mate would negate any claim to scriptural freedom. Where's the scripture? But they should not give her further details. Why? You don't think she's entitled to these details? It further goes on to say that if the husband withheld important information that the wife should know, the elder should not provide this confidential information to the wife, but suggest that she speak with her husband again. Why? I don't understand this. Why wouldn't you want her to know? It's important information that the wife should know. This is really the height of ridiculous. And nowhere is this kind of prejudicial treatment supported in the scriptures. They're so concerned with the confidentiality of the man. But what about the confidentiality of the woman? She's not privileged to hear his conversations with the elders, even in matters of infidelity, while the husband has the right to hear hers. They have two sets of rules that women know nothing about. Why? Because they're forbidden from even binding copies of this secret handbook. The organization then gets even more insulting, if you can believe it. Listen here to this talk that was given by governing body member Samuel Hurd. Mind you, it was given before he was a governing body member, but I guess he impressed the boys upstairs so much with what he said here that they decided to make him a governing body member.
You know, scientists say that the cranial capacity of a woman is 10% smaller than that of a man. So now this shows that she's just not equipped for the role of headship.
It doesn't show that. He's jumping to a conclusion here with no evidence whatsoever to back it up.
Her role is one of subjection to the man. Her role is that of submissiveness, and that means that she should recognize that she is a woman and be glad to be a woman. You would recognize, if you truly love your husband, that you're not equipped mentally, emotionally, and physically or somatically for the role of competition. You would never pit your mind against it, not if you truly love your husband. Or you might recognize that you're quicker of mind than he is. Oftentimes this is the case. The boy marries girl. He finds out that girl is smarter than boy. Shortly after marriage, she finds out that she's smarter than boy. She'll work extremely hard, never to show that she's quicker in mind than her husband.
He seems to feel that women are just itching to be men. We're not. Men and women each have different strengths and weaknesses. And we work best together as a team when we respect those differences. So he starts off here by stating that women have a smaller cranial capacity than men. But then he ends up stating that women are generally smarter than men. Yet we're supposed to pretend that they're the ones who are smarter. It's not a competition. No one is trying to show up their spouse. And if you are in a marriage where one mate is always competing against you and trying to show you up, well, it's not going to be a very happy marriage. So then, can women with smaller sized brains, yet smarter brains, can we have any kind of a larger role within the congregation? Well, let's see what Jeffrey Jackson has to say about this.
Is there any biblical impediment to a determination, a judicial determination, being made by a body which includes women, although the elders thereafter may respond in terms of as the decision maker in relation to what happens to someone after a decision has been made as to the truth or not of an allegation?
That's a good question. Could I just mention first, Your Honour, something? Please bear with me on this. Now, to answer your question directly, women can be involved in this very sensitive area, but biblically speaking, the role of judges in the congregation, it lays with men. That's what the Bible says, and that's what we endeavour to follow.
Can you give me the reference for that?
Yes. In the scriptures,
that is judges being only men. Not elders, but judges being only men.
Okay, I would have to check it. I think Deuteronomy is one of them, but definitely when it speaks of judges at the gates in Israel, we're talking about older men. But I apologize, Your Honour, seeing you asked this question, I cannot give you the exact scriptural reference, but we'll be happy to do that.
We would appreciate it.
I'll give him a scriptural reference. We've got Judges 4, verses 4 and 5. It says, Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time. She used to sit under Deborah's palm tree between Ramah and Bethel in the mountainous region of Ephraim. The Israelites would go up to her for judgment. But we know that if Deborah was alive today and in a kingdom hall, she'd no doubt be disfellowshipped for judging, something that God's word allowed her to do. And then we have questions from readers from a June 1st, 1986 Watchtower, where somebody asked, how many judges were there? The answer is when you count up the judges, the number you arrive at depends on how you view certain Israelites. or how you view certain women. But it can safely be said that 12 men served as judges between Joshua and Samuel. Then it further goes on to say, aside from these 12, the Bible mentions Deborah, Eli, and Samuel in connection with judging. So they do mention her. However, Deborah is called first a prophetess. Right, and you can't be a prophetess and a judge. And she's linked with Judge Barak, who particularly took the lead, because he's a man, in delivering the people from oppression. Similarly, Eli was principally a high priest. So he was principally a high priest. He wasn't a prophet as well, because you can't be both, obviously. Not a savior who led Israel to freedom through battle. Hence, while Deborah and Eli had a role in judging Israel, there's reason not to list them with the 12 men who clearly and primarily were especially raised up as judges. Yes, I realize I was being a bit snippy when I was reading that last reference. It's just so annoying to read this. So, the organization has a problem calling Deborah a judge, even though God's word calls her one. But while we're on the topic of discounting judges, let's see what the record says about Judge Rutherford. This is from Wikipedia. It talked about here how Judge Rutherford had gone to college. It said he had spent 2 years as a judge's intern. And then he later became a trial lawyer for a law firm. It says he campaigned briefly for Democratic presidential candidate William Jennings Bryan. That's interesting. It says he was appointed as a special judge in the 8th Judicial Circuit Court of Missouri, sitting as a substitute judge at least once. So once he served as a substitute judge, and thereafter had everyone refer to him as Judge Rutherford. Yet the Bible refers to Deborah as a judge, and it says she was judging Israel. Yet the governing body doesn't say she's a judge. No, she's not a judge. Thumbs down to that, eh? The Bible highlights other roles too that women performed, such as that of being a prophet. Let's have a look at a list of some of these. We see Miriam, Deborah, Huldah, Noadiah, Isaiah's wife, and from the New Testament, Anna. The organization outlines how their members, including women, need to dress. Have you ever wondered, though, why Jehovah's Witness women do not wear pants in their Kingdom Hall or while out in field ministry? Well, there's an entire brochure dedicated to the dress and grooming of their members, of those who wish to visit their Bethel. Let's have a look. So here's the brochure. It's entitled Dress and Grooming for Visitors Touring Bethel. And then they give you a list of scriptural principles to guide you as to what is acceptable wearing there. And basically, they don't teach you so much in what they say, it's more in the pictures that they show you. And when you look at this brochure, all the pictures show sisters wearing skirts or dresses that are below the knee. Slits and tight-fitting outfits, tight-fitting skirts that are too short or too casual are simply not acceptable. And anything below the knee that's a dress that's properly fitted is acceptable, but pants are certainly not. The organization has long used the example of how business people dress in an office environment as a guideline for how their brothers and sisters need to dress at the Kingdom Hall. From a 1984 Awake magazine, notice under the subheading there on the bottom of the left-hand column under accountability, it says, while the fashion world may promote the anything goes philosophy, much of the business world does have a dress code. For instance, regarding Western countries, notice the hefty list of don'ts for magazines and books on proper dress for a job interview. Don't wear slacks or too much makeup and so on. And notice that the picture that they show you there, that is the way they would like sisters to dress. The skirt is below the knee, not wearing pants. And as I said, this is from 1984, but from what we just saw from the Bethel brochure about dress and grooming, it's pretty much the same. Nothing has changed from their standpoint on how women and sisters should dress. But times have changed. And when you go to an office in the Western world, you're going to see that most women are actually wearing nice dress pants. Without getting all carried away with some of the crazy fads, it is nice to be current. I mean, how would you feel if these guys wearing 1970s suits showed up proselytizing at your door? I think it would be hard to take them seriously. Today, this is what many, if not most, women wear in a business environment. Yet, it's not acceptable to the organization for sisters to dress like this at their meetings. Why? Well, let's see what they'd said. From the July 15th, 1984 Watchtower, they first start by showing the scripture at Deuteronomy 22, verse 5, that says, "A woman must not put on the clothing of a man, nor should a man wear the clothing of a woman, for anyone doing so is detestable to Jehovah your God." The question then asks, in view of this prohibition, is it proper for a woman to wear slacks? And they start off by saying again, so a woman should not dress as a man, and a man should not be dressing as a woman, or confusing the sexes in this way, because it could lead to homosexuality. I didn't know that that's how that happens. Then it goes on to say, the principle in this text would not rule out a Christian woman's wearing slacks sometimes, as when working around the house or on a farm. In the 1950s, jeans were considered something that you'd only wear on the farm. But then along came Gloria Vanderbilt and her stylish jeans in the 1980s, and it changed the view of these clothes, and you could wear them almost anywhere. And this is what's happened in the fashion industry. Nice dress pants are worn everywhere. Times really have changed. But the society seems so concerned that women are going to look like men if they wear pants. Do these women look like men? These suits are very feminine and flattering. This is what I would wear to work. But if you were to wear a nice dress suit with pants to a meeting, you would be judged and spoken to. Before I got married, I had a roommate who had this nice long split skirt. It's, in case you don't know what that is, it's not a slit, it's a split. Okay, so when you take extra long steps, you could kind of see that it was kind of joined a little bit in the middle, kind of like half pants kind of thing, but you couldn't tell unless you took like a super long step that it was even joined in the middle at all. It was a nice long skirt that went kind of just a few inches below the knees. And yet for some bizarre reason, the elders did not approve of this, and they immediately pulled her aside and told her that she had to not wear this anymore to the Kingdom Hall. And there was another time when I gave a talk, and I guess the dress I was wearing was a little too cocktailish. And the householder I had wore a hat. She was famous for wearing hats, but they were very stylish at that time, when Princess Diana was always wearing hats. As soon as the meeting was over, I got hauled into the back. The elders told me that although they really liked my dress, and they wished their wives wore dresses like this, one of them said, because one of them had a wife that wore very frumpy dresses. He said it was not really appropriate for the platform. And then, I left, and then they brought in the householder I had, and they told her that hats weren't appropriate. I mean, the thing is that it makes no sense. The dress maybe that I was wearing, I don't know, it's debatable. I thought it was nice. I saw many girls wearing the same dress to the assembly. So I don't know what the problem was. I thought it was a lovely dress. But at any rate, if you don't comply with the standards that the elders set for you, they don't like your split skirt, they don't like your hats, whatever the case may be, if you don't comply, you will find yourself no longer on the platform. They won't call on you, and any, congregation privileges will be denied from you. On this Kingdom Hall construction volunteer evaluation, we see what I've highlighted there. It asks the question, was his or her dress and grooming appropriate? Yes or no? And this needs to be signed off by 2 elders. So they're going to judge whether or not the way you dress at the Kingdom Hall has been appropriate, and if you're complying with their standards. And if not, you will find that you're not going to be having any congregation privileges. I want to add, although it's not publicized by the organization, that there are some sisters who are both researchers and writers of Watchtower literature. Although the sisters who do this at Bethel were not invited to Bethel for that reason. They were only invited because they were married to their husbands. Barbara Anderson was one of those sisters. In fact, it was through her researching for an article regarding children that were being abused and pedophiles that she uncovered the massive amounts of filing cabinets and information that was held at Bethel about all the thousands and thousands of pedophiles in the United States. And this is what actually woke her up from the organization. I'm going to put a link in the description of this video if you want to read further. Her story is actually quite fascinating. There are also many wives of elders and ministerial servants who write their talks for their husbands, although of course they have to remain anonymous in this. So when the meeting is over and everyone's congratulating him on his great talk, It's actually the wife many times who wrote the talk, but she has to pretend, as Samuel Hurd said, that he's the smarter one. The sad thing is that, though, because of the way women are treated within the organization, being subservient and basically like a second class, there are brothers within the organization who treat women badly and abuse their wives, both physically and mentally. Yet, when a JW wife is abused, she is encouraged to stay with him, even if the abuse is violent. From the February 15th, 2012 Watchtower, we see what I've highlighted there. It says, on one particular day, says Selma, I didn't want to have a Bible study. The night before, Steve had hit me as I had tried to prove a point, and I was feeling sad and sorry for myself. After I told the sister what had happened and how I felt, she asked me to read 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7. As I did, I began to reason, Steve never does any of these loving things for me. But the sister made me think differently by asking, how many of these things of love, acts of love, do you show toward your husband? My answer was none, for he is so difficult to live with. The sister softly said, Selma, who is trying to be a Christian here, you or Steve? Realizing that I needed to adjust my thinking, I prayed to Jehovah to help me be more loving towards Steve. Slowly things started to change. After 17 years, Steve accepted the truth. So this poor woman was abused for at least 17 years and was made to feel that she was the one with the problem. But you know, not all such stories have such happy endings. There are countless stories of Jehovah's Witness wives who remained with their abusive husbands, who ended up being killed by them, all while waiting on Jehovah. You know, it's really absolutely horrific that an organization would try to pin the blame on the victim and try to make them feel bad for this kind of thing and make them feel that they have to stay in this kind of situation. Maybe it's her fault that things aren't working out. Maybe she's not rendering her due, and this is why he acts that way. Things like that, to mess with her head and make her think that she's the crazy one, when clearly he's the one with the problem. And let's be honest, do you really think that this sister is happy now? After 17 years, she convinced her abusive husband to join a high-controlling organization where men are considered above women and women are subservient to them. It's actually the worst place for her and her husband to be, because it's a perfect place for an abuser and the absolute worst place for a victim. Thankfully, I never suffered from any physical abuse, but my former JW husband had a very low self-esteem. So I guess it made him feel better to keep calling me names and to always put me down. He said to me repeatedly that if he ever said anything nice to me, it would only just go to my head. So that's why he'd call me names like lard ass and other demeaning names that I don't want to talk about right now because they were very hurtful. I mean, it's ridiculous he'd call me lard ass because I've never been overweight a day in my life. But that wasn't the point. The point is he would call me these names to put me down because of his low self-esteem. And I can almost laugh when I think about it now, you know, because I understand now what he was trying to do. But at the time, I was like 21 years old. You know, I couldn't figure out why this, idiot I was married to could be so cruel and never say anything nice. You know, lard ass, get me my tea. Lard ass, when's dinner going to be ready? But this is the kind of thing that the society does as well. Women have smaller brains. Women were never really judges in the Bible. Keep them in dresses. Don't let unbelievers or sisters bind your elders' rule books. If their husbands abuse them, it must be something that the wife is doing wrong. She's not entitled to hear about his infidelities. But should she ever sin, he needs to be there. It's important so that he can help her. Can you imagine Jesus saying anything like this? He never would. And the reason why the tax collectors and the prostitutes were drawn to him is because Jesus showed them respect. He didn't try to tear them down further. He realized that they were already in a compromising position and they didn't need to be brought down even lower. You know, the Bible calls women the weaker vessel. Do we really need to push them down further? Is this really going to make men look better and feel better about themselves to do such a thing? You know, as Jesus said, whatever you did for one of the least of these, my brothers or sisters, you did it for me. Only weak-minded individuals try to push others down. It really reminds me of this picture that I found on the internet. I wouldn't say they want to see people fail necessarily. Well, worldly people, yes, but not so much their own members. But they definitely like their positions of unquestioning authority. But this picture I created, I believe, more accurately describes them. They are not confident, which is why they seek to control every aspect of their members' lives. It's an organization run by weak, insecure men who keep women down so that they can feel superior. As the caption says, confident men try to make you feel taller. They raise you up. They're not afraid to say good things about you and to make you feel good about yourself because they're confident in themselves. Whereas insecure men try to make you feel smaller. They push you down, and somehow this makes them feel elevated. There was a study done of women within the JW organization. They called it a high controlling organization and said that many women within it felt powerless, and because of that they suffered from depression, low self-esteem, and they had mental health issues. It also said that in general, women's lives improved once they got out from this organization. And I can certainly vouch for that. When I was within the organization, I saw so many women that were on antidepressants. I mean, yes, there's women on antidepressants who are not Jehovah's Witnesses, but there seemed to be an enormous amount within the organization who were. And they called this the happiest place on earth to be, the happiest organization. Maybe if you're popping pills. And one of the reasons why I make this video is not only to expose this organization for the things that they have done that they want people to keep quiet about, and to show people that life does get better. I can certainly vouch for that my life has improved immensely once I got out from amongst this organization. So where do we go from here? Well, at the Royal Australian Commission, the judge asked Jeffrey Jackson, is it possible for the process to be modified so that the decision can be made by a body which could include women? That is, the decision as to whether or not the allegation is true or false, made by a body which could include women. And that decision would thereafter be acted upon and a decision made as to whether or not to disfellowship by the elders. This went back and forth for a long time. It was crazy that Jeffrey Jackson didn't seem to get it. The judge wasn't asking for women to be made as elders. He was basically asking for the women to be like a first line of questioning so that when a victim comes forward, they could talk to women, and that these women could then decide whether or not this needs to go to the elders. And his answer there says, the answer, Your Honor, is such a situation would be worthy of us considering and doing research and checking the scriptures. Yes, the possibility of considering that is there. So he's not really saying yes, but he's not really saying no. The possibility is there. So we'll have to stay tuned on that. This would really be a great thing. I mean, imagine if you were a young girl who's just been abused by an elder. How comfortable would you be to discuss all the intricate details with a committee of male elders? I'm not holding my breath that anything's going to change, but I'm really hoping that they do make this change and add women into the process so that they can help victims of abuse.
Obviously, I'm not a woman, so I wouldn't like to speak on their behalf. In God's view, men and women are equal. But
the organization has a bias against women. But the sisters are forbidden to have access to the elders' rule book, so they have no idea that the odds are already stacked against them. It's a different set of scales, and we know that this is something detestable to Jehovah. He says he's not a woman and doesn't want to speak on their behalf. But that's exactly what they always do, because there's no women at the elders committee meetings, and there's no women at these judicial committee meetings when the elders meet privately. So that's exactly what they do. They speak on behalf of the women. You know, in Bible times, God allowed women to be judges and prophets. He's promised that women will be kings and priests in heaven, not just toilet bowl cleaners. Until JW.org sees the true value of women and give them a larger role, nothing will change, because the nature of old boys clubs is to look after the boys. And they will continue to cherry pick scriptures that suit their agenda. For women that are in abusive relationships, please seek outside help from organizations outside the JW.org, because these organizations are run by professionals who truly know how to help you and truly know what to do. The rules within JW.org are stacked against women, and they're not looking for your best interests. So I really hope that this video was helpful to you. And if you liked it, then like it. And I'd love to see you again next time. Bye for now.